Alrighty, well, a good Friday morning to you, Central Georgia. Today's the day we've been looking ahead at for maybe about a week and some change here in Central Georgia for the possible implications of some wintry weather. So we're going to dive into all the current conditions that you need to know. We're going to be streaming through at least the 8 a.m. hour, depending on what conditions are going to be past that time. We have our 7:25 cut-in, so I will say right now that we are going to go off the stream and on air briefly for that cut-in, and then we will be back after we finish that cut-in on air to be back on the stream to continue to keep you updated. So as of this morning, we have continued to see that wintry precipitation fall mainly in our northern corridor. It started over here around the Thomaston, the Pike, Lamar, Monroe County areas, and now it is continuing to spread about this northern corridor here in Central Georgia. So obviously you're going to see your fair share of white and gray and maybe some dark gray colors. That's indicative of that winter precipitation, but we're not seeing that come to fruition. We're having some radar difficulties this morning, according to Peachtree City is what I woke on up to for that message. So this might not be the most accurate depiction right here. I do believe these radar colors that you typically see when we cover these severe weather events, the greens, the yellows, the oranges, the reds, that's going to be indicative of the precipitation rate. So once you get into those red colors, that's going to be a heavier precipitation. But all of this remains of the wintry mix category as it stands right now. We're continuing to get reports from people in our northern tier of counties here in Central Georgia about that wintry mix that we are seeing this morning. So I'm going to take off those kind of white and gray colors and break it down piece by piece. So you can definitely see that these northern row of counties, maybe a little bit of a semicircle from Upson County all the way up to Jasper, Putnam, over into Hancock and northern Washington County. That's where we're really seeing this winter precipitation as it stands right now. It has been mainly to our northwest as of this morning. So let's kind of go piece by piece, some areas that are seeing some of that wintry mix, at least according to our radar. Again, this might not be the most accurate depiction. We have seen reports of maybe flurries in Warner Robins, down in Houston County. We saw a very, very light and brief sleet here at the station about an hour and a half ago. So right now you're seeing mainly some of that wintry mix north of Thomaston and Upson County and stretching on up into three counties to the west of I-75 right here. Spalding County where Griffin is, down into Pike County, Zebulon, and then over into Lamar County around the Barnesville area. Then we take it over across I-75 looking at steady precipitation rates up in Buds County, especially in Monroe County. That's been an area where it has seen some flashes of that yellow, maybe a brief flash of that orange color. Naomi Washington is up there at the EMA director's office and will be joining us live throughout the morning on air to give us the latest updates and if any people are out on the roads right now, are there any traffic interruptions and such. So around the Forsyth area, seeing some of that light wintry mix right now, and then that's stretching over into Juliet, maybe in East Monroe County, and this takes it all the way over into northern Jones County, mainly north of Gray right now, but the heaviest that we have been seeing this morning is still up in Jasper County around the Monticello area. That's going to be your yellow and your orange and kind of red colors that we are seeing. And then let's take it over to the eastern half of the northern edge that we are seeing this wintry mix this morning. Up in Eatonton around the Lake Oconee area, I'm sure that's quite a spectacle if you're seeing some of that lake up by, or some of that snow up by the lake. And then maybe even a little bit of some brief flurries or that wintry mix down around the Lake Sinclair area, just north of Milledgeville, but all around the Milledgeville area. So if you go to Georgia College, you have today off of school, definitely go out and see if you can see any of this winter precipitation. And then the northern half of Hancock County around the Sparta area, but still seeing lighter accumulations of maybe that wintry mix in southern Hancock County, and that stretches into this northern tier of Washington County. But I'll zoom it all out to basically say this: the further north, like we have been saying the past 3 days, the further north that you go, so you're traveling north up I-75 this morning, going up 441, those road conditions are going to continue to deteriorate the further north that you go. That's where we're seeing the heavy wintry mix, some steady snow showers. That has been reported in the metro Atlanta area. So that's going to lead to kind of that freezing, maybe that ice accumulation on the roads, creating things like black ice, making for messy road conditions. So obviously you want to try to avoid going north as much as you can today. Today is one of those days, especially in those counties I just mentioned, you're just going to want to stay inside and try to avoid going out and about. But if you absolutely need to be on the roads, definitely be sure you are taking it extremely cautious. And that goes for all of Central Georgia, not just these areas that are seeing the wintry precipitation right now, because we are going to see our fair share of very cold rain all across the area later on this afternoon. That's still going to make for messy road conditions, but thankfully not as bad as the ice accumulation would be. So that's where our radar currently stands. I'll show you two of our sky cams right now. I'll get into the current condition or current temperatures, and then I'll show you some reports, and then I'm going to take it over to meteorologist Ansley Parker, who has some more updates. Starting to see first light in the sky here at the Georgia National Fairgrounds. There's that cloud cover. We're not seeing those shiny and kind of slick areas of the pavement down here at the fairgrounds. Kind of indicative that we haven't seen really any of that winter precipitation, or maybe just a very, very brief glimpse of it. So I'm going to take it to the Macon sky cam now, where, like I said, we did have a couple of flurries, very, very light flurries. You definitely weren't going to be able to see it on our sky cam picture because we could barely see it ourselves when we did take a step outside. But right now it still looks like the roads are looking pretty good in the downtown Macon area. Again, we're going to start to see things a lot better now that we're getting first light in the sky, because it has been very hard to see a lot. We're just having to really go by the street lights and any lights that we do have in order to see anything during the nighttime hours. But to give you an idea about what's going on in Atlanta and areas further to the north of us, they definitely were getting their fair share of consistent snow showers at one point this morning. I'm going to take it over to the same sky cam I had that's facing Mercedes-Benz Stadium right in the downtown area. Let's see if we can continue to see anything. Actually, this is a different sky cam, but you can continue to see how hazy it is right there. That's going to be those snow flurry showers, that wintry mix that we're continuing to see in the downtown Atlanta area. I do believe this is near Centennial Olympic Park, if I am correct. Actually, it is that same sky cam that we did have. This is over by Centennial Olympic Park, it does look like. We don't have control over these sky cams up near in Atlanta. The only ones we have control over are the Macon, Perry, and the Dublin sky cams here. So they're going to be able to move that. We can just kind of tap in to see what their current view is right there. Let's see if I can find a good image elsewhere here in downtown Atlanta. Here's a good one from a high rise in the downtown area. Let's play that out and pop that up behind me. Can't really see it on my small computer screen right there. And there you go. That is a really good depiction of those snow flurries that are continuing to fall from the sky right there around the same area, around Centennial Olympic Park, the big Ferris wheel that you do have right here, or carousel, whatever you may call that right there, the Atlanta Eye. And this is what we have been continuing to see further up to the north. Temperatures are a little bit cooler. You're getting those steady flurry showers, or at the very minimum, just a wintry mix. So let's go ahead and flash it over to those current temperatures and to really get a good depiction of what's going on, not only here in central Georgia, but to our northwest as well. So this has been the story all morning long. Our temperatures have been hovering pretty warm in the mid to upper 30s, maybe some areas getting close to those low 30s. Monticello, Forsyth, and Thomaston are the three areas that have been seeing that consistent wintry mix, along with Eatonton, Sparta, getting on into the Milledgeville and Sandersville area. When you get those temperatures above 32 degrees, winter precipitation still can fall, but these are the temperatures at the surface. So anything that is to fall is less likely to stick because these temperatures are not conducive enough to produce freezing temperatures. Once you get to that 32 degree mark and below, that's when you start to see things like ice accumulation, start to see snow stick to the ground and such. So right now that's where it does stand, and we're continuing to see even reports of those slight flurry showers, that wintry mix in our north and northeastern corridor, along with the northwest corridor here in central Georgia. But let's flash it over to the northwest, an area that has seen consistent precipitation this morning. 29 in Carrollton, 30 in Hampton, 31 in Atlanta, 30 up at Dobbins Air Force Base in Marietta, and 31 over in LaGrange. Those temperatures are just a tick or two below us. May not seem like that much of a difference, but a 1 to 2 degree difference with winter weather makes all the difference, especially with all of us hovering so close to freezing temperature. So right now, here's a flash of some of the reports that we've seen here in central Georgia, according to the National Weather Service. As far north as Ackworth, down to Dallas and Paulding County, up in the metro Atlanta area, tons of reports in the metro Atlanta area, specifically around the Decatur area near Fairburn, and then getting on down a little bit further south closer to central Georgia, Covington, McDonough, and then over into Peachtree City. The National Weather Service has seen some accumulation of sleet in their parking lot. Over to LaGrange and Columbus, those areas saw that winter precipitation probably the earliest this morning, maybe around 4 a.m. And here in Macon, we have Forsyth, Macon, possibly Warner Robins. We're continuing to see reports of those. Ansley Parker might have some videos of those. So let's go ahead and take it on on to her. Ansley, what have you been seeing exactly with some of the reports? Obviously, people in the Weather Network have been so helpful to giving us a bird's eye view of what's actually happening.
That's right. They definitely have. We've been seeing a lot of your photos and videos. Not only that, but also just your descriptions of what outside looks like for you guys right now. So in terms of what the latest that we're seeing, not only here in central Georgia, but across the state, we're seeing a lot of accumulating sleet and snow in North Georgia. So I'm going to show you some pictures and videos of North Georgia here in a minute to give you a little bit of a comparison. You saw that on the sky cam that Alex was showing you. They're definitely dealing with a lot more heavier impacts than we're seeing here in central Georgia. But nonetheless, we've still had reports of light flurries in our northwestern spots. We saw some flurries over towards Lamar earlier this morning, and sleet and freezing rain has been spotted across almost all of our northwestern counties this morning. So if we go ahead and take a look at some of the pictures and videos here, I pulled this one straight from our National Weather Service chat. So this is up towards Atlanta. This is our NWS Peachtree City office, and you can see the accumulation actually quite impressive here at the moment. Despite some of this accumulation, it does sound like emergency management is prepared up in North Georgia. They don't really anticipate having any issues on the roads in this area at the moment. So that kind of gives you a picture of what we're not sitting under here. But over towards Putnam County, closer to us, we are seeing some reports of light flurries mixed in with a little bit of sleet and freezing rain. So we're getting an idea of kind of that wintry mix that you've heard us talk so much about. I've seen reports of this not only here, but also in other areas across central Georgia as well. So reports of that light flurry, maybe a little bit of sleet and freezing rain mixture over in Eatonton. Now this is a picture I actually used during the 6 a.m. hour in the show. This is in Milledgeville, submitted by Lynn Garland to our Weather Network. So you can see some of the sleet accumulation up on the stairs of what looks like to be a building here. I'm also not seeing reports just yet of accumulation out on the roads, but definitely important to pay attention to. It does look like it is sticking in a couple of areas here. So we'll continue to pay attention to not only the air temperature, but also the ground temperature as we kind of head throughout the rest of the mid-morning here. Another picture in Eatonton. This is actually the bed of a truck. I know it may be a little bit disorienting. This is from our Weather Network as well, submitted by Cody Brown. This is in Eatonton. Some sleet starting to accumulate in the bed of his truck. So you can see there's a lot of areas that are getting accumulation. If I'm talking about just reports that I've seen from you guys verbally in the Weather Network, I've heard of reports sleet in as far as Crawford and Jones counties. Also reports of flurries as far as Warner Robins. So that may have been a really brief moment of a light flurry or something like that towards Warner Robins. I haven't seen any pictures or videos of anything like that, but potentially some flurries as far south as Warner Robins. But really that sleet and snow mixture is what we're seeing here. And if we look at what the National Weather Service was predicting in terms of who was going to see some conditions like this, it's pretty on par. The winter weather alerts are right in line with the reports that we're getting from the field now. So Jasper and Putnam counties likely to see maybe some more of those flurries, maybe a little bit more accumulation then further towards our south, our northwestern counties in that winter weather advisory, which means what we're seeing now is what we were expecting to see. A couple of that wintry mix showers rolling across the area, and that continues to be what we're expecting here at the moment. In terms of ice accumulation that is predicted, this is from this morning from the National Weather Service. They haven't really changed it since they issued it late last night, and it just looks like they predict we may see some slight ice accumulation in our northwestern counties, specifically up towards Jasper and Putnam, where you saw that winter weather watch issued. And right now it doesn't look like we have any reports of ice accumulation, but we'll continue to keep our eye on that. So that's kind of what I've got going on in the field at the moment here. I'm going to send it back over to Alex Pry with a little bit more on what's going on and what we can expect for the rest of the day, right, Alex?
Absolutely, Ansley. And it is worth noting right there, you're looking at that predicted ice accumulation map that Ansley has drawn up. It does not take a lot of ice to disrupt things on the roads. Obviously, getting up to about 1/10 of an inch of ice is things that is going to damage power lines and such. So obviously going to keep a close eye on that. Hoping that we don't see any ice accumulation here in central Georgia, but all the more reason to take it slower on the roads. And definitely if you do see any power lines, be sure to report those to the emergency managers. They will come clean those up and stay away from them, even if they are frozen in nature. So real quick, we're going to have to get to our cut in here in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to play it through FutureView. Let's time this out over the next couple of hours. Right now, 9 a.m. FutureView is really on par with our current satellite and radar picture that our northern counties, kind of a line from Macon further up to the north, could see that wintry mix as we go throughout this coldest part of the morning. Now, once we get to about 10 a.m., we're looking at a warm layer to develop a little bit higher up in the atmosphere from the surface, around 900, 850 millibars. That's going going to be a couple hundred feet up in the air. What that's going to do, that's going to contribute to the melting of any frozen precipitation that continues to fall from higher up in the sky. So more than likely, it won't have too much time to freeze back over before it does hit the ground. But it's all going to depend on what those surface temperatures are, because if we're 32 at the surface, that precipitation can hit as a liquid and then freeze over once it hits the ground. So we'll continue to keep a close eye for reports once we get there. Now as we go into about the midday window, this is around 12 to 1 later on this afternoon. It's saying predominantly a wintry mix here in central Georgia. I think this is going to give way to mostly a very cold rain here in central Georgia. And as you've noticed, our southern counties are not getting a lick of rain whatsoever. Don't worry, your precipitation is going to come today, like I said, and like I had on the 7-day forecast. I didn't show it too much. 100% chance of precipitation today, whether you see that wintry mix or just a very cold rain. Once we get into about 3-4 o'clock, we're looking at more of that rain to be widespread across our southern corridor here in central Georgia. But the best chance you have of seeing that wintry mix is going to be in our northern 1 or 2 rows of counties here. So that's kind of timing it out. And once we go from 4 p.m. all the way until about midnight, 1 a.m. is how long that rain is going to last here in central Georgia. Once we get closer and closer to about 11, 12 in the afternoon, we're looking at any chance of that wintry mix to really start to dissipate here in central Georgia. So we're going to go down for just a brief moment. Go pour yourself a coffee, a hot chocolate. We're going to be on 13 WMAZ for our 5-minute cut in here in just a second, and then we're going to pop back over to Facebook and get back on the stream. So thank you for tuning in. Go do what I said, and then we will see you here in probably less than a minute.
Good morning to you on this cold and winter Friday morning. It's 7:26. I'm Frederick Price.
And I'm Caitlin Heck. Of course, the big talk of today is the winter weather that we're seeing here across central Georgia and in the state. One of the big concerns, of course, is conditions on the road.
Our team in Fariha are in the newsroom monitoring the latest conditions. Fariha, what can you tell us?
Yeah, there was a crash in Fort Valley this morning. It happened at State Road 49 at Fountain Street. 511 Georgia said it should clear by 7, but now it's anticipated to clear by 8. There's a utility pole down, according to the website. Now, if you're able to stay home and not leave today, good. Try to avoid getting on the roads if possible. About a half hour ago, the National Weather Service reported they're noticing snow and ice reports in Metro Atlanta. There's also reports of icy conditions in Lamar County at State Road 7 at McLean Road and Trice Road, and icy conditions in Clark, Clayton, Jackson, Henry, DeKalb, and Fulton County. As we continue to follow updates on the 511, we'll keep you posted as conditions change. Reporting live from the 13 WMAZ newsroom, Fariha Abrar.
All right, thank you so much, Fariha. Right now, the satellite and radar picture continues to show that wintry mix and that steady precipitation, mainly in our northern 1 or 2 rows of counties here in central Georgia. So stretching over from Zebulon, Griffin, over into Barnesville, around Pike, Lamar, and Spalding County. Basically a straight horizontal line and cross going over the north of Forsyth, north of Gray, around the Milledgeville area, and everywhere further northward. We've seen definitely the heaviest rate of precipitation up in Jasper and Putnam counties this morning. Continue to send us photos and videos, and when it is safe to do so, don't go driving and see this on the roads and try to send us a video in. Definitely need to be very, very cautious on the roads this morning. But let's send it over to Ansley Parker. She has the latest on some reports that we've seen so far this morning. Ansley?
That's right, Alex. We've seen actually a lot in our northwestern counties here, more in the North Georgia area. So when we're talking about that region, we've seen a whole lot more accumulation. So a lot more of the snow showers and the wintry mix sticking to the ground. That's what's going on further in North Georgia. Georgia, but down here closer to central Georgia, we've seen reports of even some light flurries in our northwestern counties towards Lamar, and then in our northern counties across central Georgia, lots of reports of sleet and freezing rain. So really that wintry mix that we've been continuing to prepare you for the past couple of days, that could continue throughout the mid-morning. So again, we're keeping our eye on road conditions, seeing what the ground temperature is like so we can pay attention to what is sticking. Now stay with us. We'll be back on the stream and back with more news and weather in 25 minutes.
All right, thank you. Well, again, we'll be back in 25 minutes. CBS Mornings continues next.
We'll see you then.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for joining back with us, Central Georgia. It is a winter wonderland further up in northern portions of the state of Georgia. Once again, this is a Skycam view we have from a high-rise in downtown Atlanta. This is going to be near the Atlanta Eye, the big Ferris wheel by Centennial Park, over by the Omni, CNN Center, College Football Hall of Fame and such. And this is a really cool shot because you're continuing to see up at a higher level all of these snow flurries continue to fall from the sky. Further up in the northern portions of the state, we have seen good videos and pictures of some snow accumulations, even down in Peachtree City at our National Weather Service office, but that is slowly transitioning into a wintry mix as you make your way into northern central Georgia. So another live look at the satellite and radar picture. We continue to really just see these northernmost counties in central Georgia get pounded and pounded by this precipitation. Once again, don't really pay attention to these white and gray colors. We're having radar difficulty, and that's not accurately representing where the precipitation is falling. Obviously looking at our Macon and our Georgia National Fairgrounds sky cams. So further up to the north, looking at counties like Upson County, up into the Three Corners area of Pike, Lamar, Spalding County, over into Butts, down into Monroe County, just north of Forsyth, especially Jasper and Putnam. Those two areas that we have been monitoring very closely over the last couple of days that have been included in the winter storm watch and now in the winter storm warning. More confidence is that they will see those wintry weather impacts, even possible ice accumulation. And we're continuing to see steady precipitation rates up in those two counties around Monticello, Eatonton, up near the Lake Oconee area. So like we have been saying all morning, please continue to send us pictures and videos whenever you can. Only do it when it is safe to do so. Like I just said for our 725 cut-in, if you are driving on the roads and you start to see this winter precipitation, do not grab your phone and try to video it. You need to be focused on driving because conditions continue to deteriorate the further north that you go. Maybe going up I-75 this morning, going up 441 towards northeast Georgia, maybe around Lake Oconee, the Madison area up in Morgan County. So only when it's safe to do so, continue to send us those pictures and videos. If you're just having fun at home, enjoying the cold morning and looking for any of those sites of winter weather, of course, go ahead and send us those videos that you do see. And really looking for some videos out of Monticello in the Jasper County area. I know it's on the border of our viewing area here, but we would love to see what's going on up there because this is especially one of the counties that we have seen that steady precipitation rate. Getting good reports out of Eatonton as well, but anyone up at Lake Oconee that may be watching, continue to send us videos in our weather network on Ansley Parker's Facebook post because it is quite a sight to see here in central Georgia this morning. But then we take it over to the eastern edge of this line right here, Sparta, Milledgeville, just north of Sandersville in northern Washington County. All these areas seeing some form of that wintry mix early this morning. And this is still the consensus of what's going to happen on our future view model. Future view has been pretty accurate, especially about the timing of this. This started maybe around 5:30 in the morning, somewhere in between what future view was saying as of yesterday and the day before. And it continues to show that this winter precipitation is going to continue about our northernmost counties. We could see this kind of line right now of that precipitation drape down a little further southward down here to maybe Bibb County. I think Macon northward is the best chance of seeing that winter precipitation mix early this morning. And like we have been continuing to say, as we get into the afternoon, we get past sunrise, those temperatures are going to warm. They're not going to warm much, but they're already hovering above freezing temperature, and it's going to continue to allow for too warm of a surface for anything to stick on the ground. So hopefully that's going to have good indications, or good implications rather, I should say, for things like ice on the roads as you're making your way out and about in central Georgia throughout today. And this is very accurate, especially of what we have of our latest advisories and warnings here in central Georgia. So if you remember yesterday, this graphic showed just Jasper and just Putnam County in a winter storm watch. So now what we have done, we have upgraded Jasper and Putnam counties to a winter storm warning where wintry precipitation conditions are expected in a shorter time period, more likely in the next 12 hours or so, which did get issued as of yesterday. Now we take a look at the winter weather advisory, which has many central Georgia counties added into it. It's going to be Upson County, Pike, Lamar, over into Monroe County, Crawford County, Bibb, Jones, Twiggs, Wilkinson, Baldwin, Hancock, and Washington counties are in that winter weather advisory. Now, if you were tuning into the live stream yesterday, I kept reiterating that the winter storm watch to a winter weather advisory, that is an upgrade, but that just means the confidence of seeing any wintry precipitation has increased in these areas here in central Georgia. That was the big issue with Snowmageddon. Many people perceived the upgrade to the advisory as a downgrade, because obviously I definitely understand it. The advisory sounds like a downgrade from a watch, and that winter storm warning obviously looking at a greater chance or greater confidence in maybe seeing things like ice accumulation, that steady winter precipitation that has come to fruition early this morning. So all this to be said, just please continue to exercise caution on the roads. We're continuing to monitor traffic updates about possible road closures, and then maybe some bridges or overpasses that may ice as we continue throughout the morning. But once we get past that 9 to 10 a.m. time frame later on this morning, that's when we're going to look at most of this wintry mix, or even a couple of steady flurries to really transition into a cold rain throughout the rest of the day. In areas further down to the south, not in any advisories or watches or warnings. They have yet to see really any winter precipitation or rain whatsoever this morning. Probably going to be later on in the afternoon before you see any type of rain down there, and it's going to be a very cold rain further down in our southern corridor. So here's where we currently stand as of temperature wise, and then Ansley Parker has some more information that we're going to show you. Right now, temperatures across central Georgia are still continuing to hover above freezing temperature. Not saying that winter precipitation can't fall when it's above 32 degrees. It very well can, but that surface temperature is too warm to allow for the accumulation and sticking of any of that winter precipitation. And areas further to the north, you're seeing temperatures closer and closer to that freezing temperature of 32 degrees. So we still have maybe about an hour and a half until we get into that time where we're going to start to warm up here in central Georgia. Cloud cover may even act as a little bit of a delay for that warm up. We may trend a little bit closer to that 10 a.m. time frame. Nonetheless, there is still time for these temperatures to drop down to around freezing temperature here in central Georgia. But like I said, the steady snowfall is further up to the north here in central Georgia. Atlanta at 31 degrees, so just barely below that 32 degree mark. It still is cold enough for things to stick up there. And everyone else seems to be somewhere in the upper 20s. Carrollton, Dobbins Air Force Base up in Marietta, Hampton, just to the south of Atlanta up I-75. Those areas are looking at some snow accumulation already this morning, and then that is transitioning into more of a wintry mix in our northern corridor here in central Georgia. But definitely wouldn't be surprised if we see some reports out of Jasper County, maybe Shadydale, up in Monticello, up in the Eatonton area of some accumulation of snow. But right now the temperatures do look a little bit warm for that right now. But obviously each separate location is a little bit different for what the temperatures may read. If you're just a little bit north of town in Monticello, you might have that 32-degree mark, but down in Monticello, it reads 33 degrees, 34 degrees over in Eatonton, so that's why we're thinking more of that wintry mix. Everything's going to start to melt the closer it does get to the surface. But Ainsley Parker has the latest with some of our reports. It has been fascinating to see everyone's videos and pictures so far this morning. What do you have with the latest, Ainsley?
That is so true. I've been keeping my eye on our weather network all morning long, and especially our National Weather Service chat, just seeing all of your photos and hearing all of your reports about kind of what is the picture outside. So that's what I'm going to take you to now. Basically, with the latest reports, kind of big picture, we're talking about accumulating sleet and snow in North Georgia. So really, I'm going to show you a video here in a second where you're seeing more amounts of snow sticking to the ground. That's further towards our north, which is what we were expecting to see when we kind of were getting prepared for this event for the past few days. Here closer to central Georgia, we have had several reports of light flurries, so that's exciting. We weren't quite expecting to see as many flurries. We were kind of just prepared to see that wintry mix, so always exciting to see something a little bit happier than just some sleet or some freezing rain. But sleet and freezing rain are certainly spreading across our northern counties throughout the rest of this morning as well. So let me kind of give you a visual picture about accumulating snow in North Georgia. Now this is pulled straight from our National Weather Service chat. This is at their office in Peachtree City. You can really see the snow starting to accumulate on the ground there. When I take a look at the National Weather Service chat in terms of what the roads are looking like, the only report that we do have of an accident related to the snow is in Chattanooga County. They have heavy snow and that resulted in their first accident. So GDOT is on the roads helping salt and just get things cleaned up in that area and just continuing to prepare the roads for the snow as it does continue to come down. Now here in central Georgia, hopefully the roads are still salted in those heavy traffic areas, but definitely, as Alex was emphasizing, just important to pay attention to, especially in these early morning hours where some of this freezing rain and some of this wintry mix is still coming down. It's just something to note. Now I did show this video earlier as well. This is in Putnam County. We are still seeing some reports of flurries and some light freezing rain and some sleet as well. What most of central Georgia is really seeing is what you're seeing on your screen here, or at least northern central Georgia. This picture was taken in Milledgeville. This is from our weather network, and this is kind of what I'm seeing the most throughout the weather network. Lots of sleet kind of rolling across the area, and sleet sticking to places that really haven't been salted or might not be driven on. So this is on the steps of what looks to be maybe an apartment building or something like that. I've seen several photos of your back porches. I've seen your driveways, things like that. Lots of this sleet kind of sticking to some of those areas where you may be able to see it accumulate kind of in your backyards, things like that. Hopefully out on the roads, maybe not quite the same picture just because emergency management has been getting ready for this for the past couple of days. So that's kind of the picture that most of our northern counties are looking at here. This is another one taken in Eatonton by Cody Brown, submitted to our weather network. This is the bed of a truck. So that's what you're seeing there where the sleet has accumulated in that area. If I kind of go through my list here, I've written down some specific things. We've had flurries to wintry mix moving across our area, which we did mention. Monroe County has been a big point of interest. We've seen a lot of flurries in Monroe County. We saw lots of freezing rain, lots of that wintry mix, especially in that area. Macon also saw some wintry mix. Meteorologist Alex Pry and I ran outside in between the shows and were able to see some of the sleet coming down from the sky. Definitely exciting. We don't get to see winter weather a lot here in central Georgia, so we did see some of that here in Macon. I'm still seeing reports of wintry mix coming down in a couple areas. Again, no damages so far. So in terms of things like power lines, trees, just general accidents related to the weather, not seeing any of that so far either. And then again, seeing flurries as far as Lake Tobo this morning. And on the east side of Baldwin County, I just got a report, actually just now, from the National Weather Service saying that they are seeing some reports of snow and sleet in that area. So that's kind of big picture what's going on all across our area this morning. Lots of excitement, even though it's just some wintry mix here. And again, if you're curious what we mean when we say wintry mix, we're really talking about this right here. Different temperatures at different levels in the atmosphere. So when we have an above freezing atmosphere all the way through, that's when we have just rain. When we have an above freezing atmosphere until just at the surface, that's when you have freezing rain. So the rain is actually freezing as it makes contact with the surface. Sleet just a little bit different. It has a higher profile of below freezing temperatures, so it's able to refreeze before it hits the ground. And of course, to see a couple of those flurries, you got to have below freezing temperatures all the way through the atmosphere. So very exciting. We're continuing to keep our eye on all of that. Wintry mix still possible throughout the rest of the morning here. And I think Alex might have a little bit more on that for you. I'm going to toss it back over to him now. Alex.
Yes, thank you very much, Ansley. Right now, starting to get first light in the sky, getting a good visual of what things look like all across central Georgia. And obviously, this has probably been the scene for many hours here. We just haven't really been able to see it. Many clouds are in the sky right now, and further off into the north, into the northwest, that's when we're looking at that winter precipitation. But here in downtown Macon, it still remains quiet, unfortunately, but I'll give you an idea of how close that precipitation is of the winter nature. And there was I believe we did just receive a report, 3 inches of snow somewhere just outside of Noonan. And we do have a Noonan sky cam that we've been kind of popping over to throughout the morning. Let's see if I can find that for you. That was definitely a pretty cool picture. That is Callaway Gardens right there, LaGrange. There's Noonan right here. Oh yeah, this looks to be a pretty good Skycam clip. Let me play it live for you. See if we can get a good idea of what's going on here just to our northwest. And there we go. Yeah, it looks like maybe even seeing some white sticking to the top of buildings here in downtown Noonan, giving you a little bit of an idea of maybe just some areas further to the north are really just dealing with a bit of some steady flurry showers here in central Georgia. But once again, I want to go ahead and turn it back to about 2 days ago. So right now, if we go into our tropical headlines, these are the 3 things that we've continued to update day by day and try to give you a good idea of what to expect. Obviously, there's so many models we've been showing you. We've been breaking it down piece by piece, getting specific about certain areas, about what type of precipitation that we mean. And the big 3 things that we want you to take away as we're continuing throughout this event right now, currently this morning, we're still continuing to see that wintry mix mainly in our northern corridor. That 5 to 9 a.m. window is going to be the best chance. We may stretch that a little bit. It may go a little bit longer till about 10 a.m. Obviously going to be a little bit more hesitant to see those temperatures start to climb in nature because we're going to have that cloud cover present. It's going to lead to a little bit of a delay in the warming, but still we're already seeing temperatures mainly above freezing temperature here in most of central Georgia. So I think that 5 to 9 a.m. window is really the sweet spot for seeing any of that wintry mix. And I think it's really going to be a straight horizontal line. You take it all the way through Macon and just northward. That's where we're really looking at the greatest chance of seeing any of that wintry mix. For the rest of central Georgia, unfortunately, it is just going to be a very cold rain for the remainder of today. We haven't seen much rain whatsoever in areas further down in our southern corridor, areas like Eastman, down in Dodge County, down to Wilcox, Pulaski, over into Dooley, Chris. We haven't really seen much come to fruition there, but don't worry, you are forecasted to get your fair share of rain later on as we go throughout the afternoon. I know it's not of the wintry mix type or even seeing some flurry showers, and you probably will be disappointed, but at the same time, this will be still very good, especially if you live in areas further down south. It's looking good to be out on the roads, just of course take it a little bit slower when we do have that steady rain present later on in the afternoon. But the ice accumulation chance, that's what we're going to continue to monitor throughout this morning and this afternoon, especially in areas further to our north. That increased over the last maybe 48 hours or so here in our northern tier here in central Georgia. So we do have a projected ice accumulation that I'll toss it over to Ansley in just a second. But those counties, Jasper, Putnam, Hancock, Monroe, Jones, anywhere in those like northern 2 rows here in central Georgia is really where we're looking at possible ice accumulation. And the trend has gone a little bit further south, and our models haven't really done the best job of actually predicting that ice. The shaded areas have been far off what the values are reading. So the National Weather Service did generate a graphic for us yesterday about the potential ice. And I will go ahead and note, it doesn't take a lot of ice to really disrupt things on the roads. All you need is maybe even about 0.05 of an inch of ice, or even just a little bit of ice. That can cause for slick conditions, can cause you to swerve around on the road. So these areas that do have the potential for ice accumulation, you're definitely going to want to be very cautious if you absolutely have to be out on the roads today. I'll toss it over to Ansley, who has a look at those areas and where we're projecting possible ice accumulation here in central Georgia.
Yeah, while we're on the topic of ice, I was just checking in with the National Weather Service in terms of the products that they're still issuing this morning. So last night, the only real difference between what you're seeing on this graphic now and what it looks like at the moment is that they've stretched that really light blue area just a little bit further south, which really shouldn't be a big surprise to us here. When we're looking at all of our reports of seeing some of that wintry mix across the area, it's including these counties that are shaded in that blue area. So earlier this morning, it kind of stopped just shy of Monroe County, or at least the northern parts of Monroe County, grazing the northern parts of Jones and maybe Baldwin County as well. Now extended just a little bit further south, so it includes most of Bibb County here, also kind of extending into the very northern part of Twiggs and Wilkinson County and kind of extending over more regions of Washington and maybe even a little bit of Crawford County as well. So all this means is, hey, these areas this morning, they've seen a little bit of wintry mix. They've seen some of that frozen precip. They've seen some of the sleet across the area. So while the temperatures are still low and while some of this frozen precip is still coming down, we're still going to pay attention to these areas because they have the chance to have maybe some light ice accumulation. And you'll notice it's not a lot, certainly not a lot, especially compared to when we go out and look at North Georgia here. If we go further towards the north where they're seeing a lot of not only the snow accumulation, but also starting to see some ice accumulation, they're expected to see closer to about a ½ an inch of ice accumulation. So we're certainly not sitting in the worst of what we could be seeing, but like Alex was mentioning just a few minutes ago, any type of ice on the roads can certainly cause some issue. Nobody should be driving on the roads when we have any level of ice out there. So hopefully emergency management continues to do a good job of salting the roads and noting problem areas to us here in the National Weather Service chat. Again, I haven't seen anything specifically related to our roads here at the moment from the chat alone. Again, Freeha is keeping a really good track about what GDOT is saying to us here and is kind of keeping an eye on what the road conditions are. She's going to keep telling us more about that when we come back for the cut-ins in just a few minutes here. But that is kind of what they're just expecting in terms of ice accumulation, and just kind of important to note that they have extended other areas here in central Georgia to be included for the chance to see some ice accumulation. So that's really the most that we're talking about there with ice accumulation. Again, other than that, we're just kind of watching the wintry mix roll across the area. This graphic here hasn't changed much. I know we've talked a little bit about our southern counties. They haven't seen a ton this morning. Rain is coming your way as we head throughout the rest of the day today, but really that constant mix of snow, sleet, freezing rain, and then the potential to see a little bit of ice accumulation, that stays further towards our north, the northern half of central Georgia, and then further towards North Georgia where they're seeing a little bit more accumulation. So we got a few more minutes here. I'm going to throw it back to Alex, see if he's got anything else for you, and if not, then we'll take you back to the cut-ins in just a few minutes. Alex?
Yeah, exactly right. I was actually, in fact, about to show that graphic too, Ansley, because what we've been saying over the past 2 days, we're going to have that brief window in the morning of seeing that wintry mix. A few flurries are still possible here in central Georgia. That forecast has virtually been unchanged really over the last couple of days. We've continued to see those temperatures. They're probably going to hover pretty close to freezing temperature. Obviously, they're even taking it a step above as we go throughout this morning. But right now, like we were talking about, going to see that cold rain for the rest of the day. What's that going to implicate and what's the timing of that? So let's go through future view throughout the course of this morning. Let's go to about 9-10 a.m., continuing to see widespread wintry mix or maybe even a couple of steady showers by this time, depending on what temperatures are. Nonetheless, I think it's going to fall as some kind of wintry mix, and then around 10 a.m. is when we're really looking at that warmer layer a little bit higher up in the atmosphere from the surface to start to kind of disrupt things and start to warm any frozen precipitation that continues to fall, and it won't have too much time to cool back down by the time it hits the surface. So once we hit this window, I think the main concern is going to be that freezing rain, especially with anything that does start to melt as it gets closer to the surface, and if the surface temperatures are around 32 degrees or even below that, that's what would accumulate to that freezing rain, and that would have ice implications. So still wanting to take it very cautious here throughout the rest of the morning. A good chance of that wintry mix all north of us here in central Georgia by about the 9-10 a.m. hour. And this continues on into midday. You can see that kind of purple and white color slowly recedes back to the north, and it looks like mainly a wintry mix that's starting to fall by the midday hour. Once again, I think this is going to be more of a rain as we go into around midday because temperatures are going to begin to warm up even a little bit more by the midday hour here in central Georgia. So while it may fall as something frozen, by the time it reaches the surface, it's more than likely going to melt. So it may just continue to give you a good image as we go throughout the afternoon hours here in central Georgia. But then once we go into about 3-4 o'clock, that's when that rain starts to push in for everyone else here in central Georgia. That's looking like maybe time that many areas in our southern corridor are still in school right now, so that you're probably going to run into some showers as you're heading home from school, maybe making your evening commute home from work. And then we go into the nighttime, and it looks like Precipitation is covering pretty much all of central Georgia. Maybe still holding on to a slight bit of a wintry mix further in our top 2 northern counties, Jasper and Putnam counties. But once again, the surface temperature is going to be a little bit too warm to allow for the accumulation of many things. But we'll have to keep a close eye on that all throughout today. And Ben Jones will be in later giving you the updates as you go about your Friday evening plans. So then let's take it into the overnight hours. You'll see that this system virtually starts to move out as we go into about maybe 2 a.m. this morning. This is a little bit later than what we did have forecast as of yesterday. We were looking at maybe 11 o'clock tonight. Towards the midnight hour, that's when the system would move out towards the east, and we're left with cloud cover. So this will be important as we go into tomorrow morning, monitoring temperatures, because this cloud cover is more than likely, it does keep temperatures warmer overnight, but it's going to block any sunlight during the morning hours that could create some melting, especially for areas up north that are getting more accumulation. So that's something we'll keep an eye out for tomorrow here on 13 WMAZ. But as it stands right now, the weather impact alert really just going for all day today as we continue to kind of nowcast and get an idea of those current conditions. So once again, it has become time for us to get to another cut in here. We're going to kind of collaborate with our digital manager, see what we're going to do about streaming and continuing to keep you updated throughout this morning. But once again, that window getting smaller and smaller for seeing that wintry precipitation here in central Georgia. Continue to send us your videos and photos of what you do see out and about this morning as we continue to track all of these winter storm implications, and keep an eye further up to the north where we're definitely seeing our fair share of snow. It's definitely an exciting time, but also going to monitor those ice accumulations that can pose a threat on the roads. So we'll be back on 13 WMAZ, a little less than 2 minutes. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back up here maybe past 8. We'll continue to keep you updated.
From Georgia 511 cameras, you can hear shows I-75 north near High Falls Road. You can see the icy conditions forming in northern Monroe County right now. There was a crash there earlier this morning. It has since been cleared, but just a reminder, if you are going out on the roads today, you need to be careful.
Aerial view of Monroe County there. Let's go to the ground. Naomi Washington has been live there all morning long. Naomi, what are you seeing at this hour?
Yeah, Caitlin, Frederick, earlier when you guys checked in with me, there was a lot of sleet coming down and kind of mixed with rain. It was pretty cold. It's still cold now because now there's kind of some wind picking up, but instead of that sleet, I'm just seeing these fluffy flurries going around. They tell me here at Monroe County EMS that so far they've been called to 2 car accidents that happened on I-75 right next to each other. There were minor injuries in the first one, no injuries in the second one, but they're really just emphasizing emphasizing that people just stay off the roads as much as they can. They said some areas are slippery, some aren't. They really don't know where the difference between the two are. So if you're out there, be super cautious. If you see down power lines, they say treat them as they are live at this point. And yeah, just stay inside as much as you can. And in Monroe County, Naomi Washington, 13 WMAZ News. I'm going to toss it to weather now.
All right, thank you very much, Naomi. Yeah, that is just emphasizing why we continue to tell you to take it cautious on the roads, especially if you're braving it up I-75, where we're continuing to see this red color up here. This is mainly to our top two northern counties, Jasper and Putnam. We're seeing the northern edge of those counties see that pretty heavy snow band. That's what the National Weather Service has implicated this is. And further up there, that's where we're looking at the accumulations, and that's going to create icy conditions and such. So that's where you're running into real complications on the roads the further north that you go. So right now it still remains mainly in our northern two rows of counties. We could see this kind of sag a little bit southward, maybe try to approach the Macon-Bibb County area, but also seeing some scattered precipitation down to the southwest that we will continue to monitor throughout this morning. But Ansley Parker joins me here with the latest. What do you have for us, Ansley?
Yeah, I mean, as you saw, Naomi, just north of Naomi, a lot of heavy snow coming down in North Georgia. Here in Central Georgia, still keeping our eye on the wintry mix that's rolling across the area. Alex and I are staying up to date, and we'll keep you up to date with the changes. Frederick and Caitlin?
All right, Ansley, thank you so much. We'll check back with you guys in 25 minutes, and I think you're going to continue that live stream on 13 WMAZ Plus and on our Facebook pages.
I will see you back in 25 minutes. CBS Mornings is next.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning back in with us, Central Georgia. Obviously, I know a little inconvenient. We're hopping on the air. We're hopping back on the stream. So obviously, we will continue to do that throughout the 9 a.m. hour. 8:25 is when our next cut-in is, and then we get to 8:55. That will be our last cut-in. And we will continue to monitor conditions, kind of play it by ear. By about 9 a.m., we're just continuing to see the heaviest kind of snow band is what the National Weather Service has implicated. This is in our far northern corridor here in Central Georgia. None of that really draping down to most of our viewing area, but we are still seeing our fair share of at least wintry mix, whether it is snow or not. Temperatures are fairly warm down here in Central Georgia, so a lot of that is not able to stick to the ground. It's just creating some slick conditions here and there. Naomi Washington just joined us from the Monroe County EMA office, and where she was seeing a little bit of that light wintry mix, but if she would have probably gone about 5 miles north, that's where we're seeing a little bit of heavier precipitation in nature. So just giving you an idea, those yellows, those oranges, those reds are going to be where you're going to see your steadier precipitation rates, whether it's a wintry mix or even transitioning into more of some snow showers up around Covington, maybe the Madison area, Morgan County, the northern portion of Jasper County, maybe up near Shadydale, and then around Eatonton, the Lake Oconee area. So continuing to give us a good idea. We ask that you send us in those pictures and videos when it is safe to do so. But I want to go ahead and turn your attention to further down to the south. So right now, we very well are probably seeing our fair share of scattered wintry mix showers here, where you're seeing some of these blips pop up, mainly in Macon County down here, maybe moving into the western portion of Taylor, and then all scattered about more of our central Georgia region, if you will, right there. So I imagine it's probably falling as a wintry precipitation, but the big thing I want to turn your attention to is these temperatures. Now, these are going to be your surface temperatures. This is how it feels at the surface. So right now, when you have temperatures below 32 degrees or at 32 degrees, it can allow for that to continue to fall more so and stick to the ground and be frozen in nature of the wintry precipitation type. These surface temperatures are fairly warm all across Central Georgia. which is a good indication that we're probably not going to see many ice accumulation implications, mainly in this probably southern 2/3 of central Georgia. Now, the further north that we go up, we're seeing areas like Monticello up at 30 degrees, 32 degrees over here in Thomaston, and maybe a degree or two above in those other areas that are seeing some type of wintry mix. So if you want to see any of this possible winter weather that we do have in the slim window that we still have present right now, we're more than likely looking at that to start to wane off as we go throughout the morning hours. And then as we get closer to midday, I do believe that mixture is going to turn into more of just a steady rain throughout the afternoon here in central Georgia. But the good news is these surface temperatures are hovering pretty warm as of right now. But go ahead and pour yourself a coffee, maybe go out on the front porch if you want to catch a glimpse of maybe some of that sleet, maybe that freezing rain in some areas of central Georgia. If you definitely want to see some snow, we're a little bit out of luck here, but Jasper and Putnam counties, you guys are probably seeing your fair share, maybe even some accumulating snow. Now further up to the northwest, that area has been getting it in terms of winter weather. We're looking at temperatures in the upper 20s, maybe around 30 degrees up in the metro Atlanta area. And to give you guys a good idea of what's going on, let's throw it over to a downtown Atlanta sky cam. We've been looking at all of these sky cams throughout the morning hours here in central Georgia, and oh my gosh, just looking at these on my computer screen, I'll play it out for you right here. Let's pop it over to the Skycam graphic so you can see that. And yes, this is looking like a winter wonderland if I've ever seen it. So people up in Metro Atlanta are definitely seeing their fair share of steady snow showers, and a couple of people venturing out, maybe going to have a little bit of a snowball fight up there. So that's what they're seeing. I wish we could see it here in central Georgia, but obviously Atlanta, after these temperatures do begin to warm, they're going to have ice implications all up further to the north of us, because many of this frozen precipitation is going to melt once those temperatures get a little bit warmer. And the closer and closer it gets to freezing temperature, that's going to create some messy conditions on the roads, especially the accumulation of ice, even upwards to about 2 to 3/10 of an inch forecasted from like the metro Atlanta area over into, I believe, in our eastern half, in the northeastern portion of the state. Ansley Parker has a good ice accumulation graphic. I can't find that in my workspace right now. But let's take it over to this winter weather outlook that we've been continuing to update. We updated this as of this morning, and you've probably been seeing this graphic over the last couple of days. We haven't seen much change with it. We've only just seen this pink shaded area kind of drape down a little bit further to the south. Areas like northern Monroe County, northern half of Jasper, northern half of Putnam County. All of these areas we have included more of a risk of probably seeing some ice accumulating, or the consistent mix of the snow, the sleet, the freezing rain, and that is going to last a little bit longer than the rest of central Georgia. Now the rest of central Georgia, and I think you could probably really take this green area, move it on up to about Macon, and then take it from Thomaston to Macon all the way over into maybe just south of Sandersville. That is really kind of where this green area is, where we're looking like that brief mixture and then really just a cold rain for the rest of the day, which obviously doesn't feel very good, doesn't make it very nice to be outside. And when you get that close to actually seeing the winter weather potential, you definitely want to see it. You don't want to see any of that very cold rain. In fact, the coldest possible that rain can get before turning into the wintry mix. But that's what we will be dealing with, and the good news is not looking at really any ice accumulation in this area, but we will continue to monitor any last minute changes, anything that kind of changes in the snap of a finger here in central Georgia. And then further up to the north, they're actually looking at more so some steady snow showers and maybe some more ice accumulation. That has been the trend. We're probably looking at more ice to the north of us here in central Georgia, and hopefully the roads are going to be pretty conducive. But once again, please be cautious on the roads this morning, no matter where you are going. As we go into the afternoon, we're going to start to see more of that just very, very cold rain here in central Georgia. But if you are traveling north, especially braving it up I-75, braving it up 441, traveling into this pink shaded region of the state of Georgia, you definitely are going to want to be very cautious. If you have to be out on the roads, I would definitely advise not being out on the roads in this pink shaded area throughout the remainder of Friday, maybe even lingering a little bit into tomorrow. But I did promise you an ice accumulation graphic. Let's toss it over to Ansley Parker, who has a look at that.
That's right, Alex. Keeping it on the topic of ice, we do have this outlook from the National Weather Service about kind of what they're expecting expecting throughout the rest of the morning, while we still have some of this wintry mix and even some snow showers further towards the north rolling across the area. Now, if you were with us a little bit earlier, I told you that the National Weather Service actually ended up expanding this area a little bit further towards the south. So this really should come as no surprise to us. It's not a huge change to what we're seeing right now. What it was earlier was that really light blue area where we're talking about a really low but still, somewhat impactful ice accumulation. It was up further towards the northern part of Monroe County, kind of cut off in that region, the northern part of Jones County, just below Jasper and Putnam. Now it's been extended further towards the south, so kind of including the northern parts of Bibb County, Crawford, Twiggs, Wilkinson, and Washington, because this is the area where we've continued to see some of that wintry mix across the area this morning. I do also want to note from our newsroom earlier this morning, now this was as of around 7:20 a.m. in Lamar County, GDOT did let us know that lanes were affected in both directions on State Route 7 at McLean Road and Trice Road due to the icy conditions. So this is just important to note. If you're outlined in this shaded blue area, you definitely want to use some caution on the roads throughout the rest of the morning, really throughout the rest of today. Like Alex was saying, the more you can stay off the roads throughout today, the better. It's not really great driving conditions, and like if you saw in our cut-in, Naomi was saying, they don't really know exactly where ice is going to accumulate. It's kind of a general area where ice is possible throughout the rest of the morning. But you'll notice if we kind of take this big picture and talk a little bit about North Georgia, we're not sitting in the worst of what we could be sitting in. In North Georgia, they're going to see a higher chance to see a greater amount of ice accumulation, so close to 2.5 inches, maybe half an inch up in North Georgia. So definitely more impactful, but nonetheless, like Alex was saying, it's impactful to see any type of ice whatsoever. So if we talk a little bit about what we're seeing right now, I know Alex showed you some of the sky cams up in North Georgia. Take a look at this picture that was in our National Weather Service chat. In Northwest Cobb, already seeing about an inch, and now actually as I'm showing you this, I'm seeing another message from Christina Edwards, who is at the WSB radio in Atlanta. She says about 2 inches of snowfall already in Chamblee. So things are coming down and sticking in Northwest Georgia. If you know anything about my background, I'm from up there. My parents have been sending me nonstop photos and videos of just how much snow is really starting to accumulate in that area. So a much different picture than what we're sitting in here in Central Georgia. Things could definitely be a lot crazier. What you're seeing here is probably a lot more like this. I keep going back to this photo because I just think it's such a great depiction of what you're likely walking out your door to this morning. We're likely seeing a lot of mixed wintry precip, so you're probably seeing some sleet, some freezing rain, and that may be accumulating in some areas like your backyard, maybe your front porch, maybe your deck, your railings, things like that. You're likely starting to see some of that accumulation from some of this wintry mix here. But again, not quite as heavy of what we're seeing up in North Georgia. If we take a look at this that the National Weather Service just issued for us here, and Alex was showing you on our live radar what we were talking about. But because our live radar is not giving us a great picture in terms of coloring, that area just to the north of us is where we're seeing the heaviest snow band. And you can see that kind of area in red just to the north of Monroe County, kind of near Butts and Spalding County. That's where we're still seeing some snow, some sleet, and likely some freezing rain in that area as well. So that's still kind of possible in our region throughout the rest of the morning here. If that kind of gives you a better picture of what's going on radar than the typical green colors that you're seeing most of the time, we're seeing heavy snow bands up further towards the north, and here still seeing a lot of mixed precip. So that's kind of an idea of just big picture what's going on outside at the moment here. I believe that Alex may have a couple more things to tell you about in terms of our winter weather event. What you got for us, Alex?
Well, I have a live look at, can you guess what this is right now? This is Hartsfield-Jackson Airport up in College Park. So yes, you can see the snow is really inhibiting the visibility all across these areas where it continues to fall. And right now it is definitely sticking to the ground all beside the runways here up at Hartsfield-Jackson. So this is giving you a good picture of what it looks like further to our north. And I know it is incredibly frustrating that we're not seeing this down here in Central Georgia. We only get snow every once in a while, but I promise you, while their image looks good right now, it is going to turn into more of an ice, and that is going to pose implications and concerns on the roads all around the metro Atlanta area later on today as they continue to warm up. But right now they are getting a good glimpse of maybe the closest that Georgia does get to a winter wonderland every once in a while. So once again, we don't see any weather like this, even a wintry mix. We went all winter last year here at 13 WMAZ without having to forecast any form of winter weather whatsoever. So we are continuing to make sure that you have everything that you need to know, all the information at your disposal before you do head out the door this morning, because this isn't something that happens every day, let alone every year here in Central Georgia. Let's
At the airport, actually, they just said in the National Weather Service chat that they have issued a ground stop. So,
a ground stop?
yes,
Okay.
no more planes are going out at the airport. You saw it's pretty intense over there. So they've issued a ground stop. That was the latest from the Total Traffic and Weather Network in the National Weather Service chat. So definitely a lot different in North Georgia than we're sitting in down here. Again, that's kind of a picture of where the heaviest bands of snow are coming down there. And again, issued a ground stop at the airport. So definitely causing some issues for travel up in North Georgia if you've got to do any traveling. Again, Alex mentioned this earlier. Chief Meteorologist Ben Jones will be in later tonight to kind of talk about what the conditions are going to be like overnight tonight. Again, we'll kind of keep our eye out for if some of these areas could still cause some problems in terms of ice, in terms of freezing. But I think Alex can give you a look at what the rest of the day is going to look like on our models here in just a few minutes. So I just wanted to note that. I'll take it back over to you, Alex.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, so that's obviously a very important implication. Maybe many people that did have flights and they were hoping that maybe this kind of winter precipitation would move out a little earlier rather than later. Well, obviously issuing a ground stop as of right now more than likely means many flights into the afternoon are going to get canceled, maybe even into tonight if any of this precipitation still standing on the ground is to freeze back over as we go overnight. So here's a live look at our satellite and radar picture. That graphic that Ansley just showed you, that kind of band that we were looking at, the heavy snow band, the heavy sleet band, that's going to be this red color that you do see. And it looks like it continues to spread out, and that is causing widespread winter weather, mainly to the north of us here in Central Georgia. I know, incredibly frustrating, but the further that we're moving south of that red color, that's starting to be your wintry mix in many areas in our north and our northwestern corridor. So as we take it down to the south just a little bit, once again, don't really pay attention to those whites and grays down there. That's not really an accurate depiction of any winter precipitation. But scattered tiny little green dots that we are seeing pop up occasionally, maybe a brief bit of a wintry mix further down to the south in some areas here in Central Georgia. It's right there along the Macon County, Peach County line, maybe over here in the Bleckley County area. And this also could just be what we call backscatter. That's just kind of some non-meteorological elements that they're picking up on. And some areas might see such a localized and such a brief and small wintry mix shower like we did see here up at 13 WMAZ early this morning. And that's not going to show up on the radar whatsoever. So it's best to just go ahead and test your luck. Head outside and see if you can get a glimpse of any bit of wintry precipitation that we do get, because it's more likely than not that this may be the best shot that we have at it during the winter season, but obviously still a long way to go throughout the winter season here in Central Georgia. But right now the main concern is just really for those people heading out and making that morning commute this morning, especially further up to the north. I think most of Central Georgia is looking all good on the road so far this morning. It is just going to be another cold start to this morning, but actually really nothing compared to the past couple of mornings. We've dipped well into the 20s for those actual temperatures. Feels like numbers got as cold as feels like 12 degrees in Eatonton yesterday. So obviously this is definitely warmer. It still feels cold outside, but it is a step up from what we have seen as of the recent days here in Central Georgia. So let's go ahead and get another look at the surface temperatures. We're going to continue to monitor these very closely throughout today, and we are continuing to see any temperatures that are close to that 32-degree mark further up to the northwest here in Central Georgia. Actually, some areas in our southern corridor are already hovering around what we had forecast for a high temperature throughout today. So I don't believe that we'll really see maybe too much more warming throughout the day. I think some areas will eclipse that 40-degree mark and really just make for a conducive environment for that cold rain. But once again, we're continuing to see this precipitation fall of the frozen nature, because higher up in the atmosphere, it is definitely suitable for things like snow showers, things like that wintry mix. So once it gets closer and closer to the surface, that we're actually looking at that frozen precipitation to not really be of solid form anymore. It's going to be more of a liquid form, and hopefully not get close to freezing temperature and allow for things such as ice accumulation. But our current temperatures still stand during this right now. I'm increasingly get less and less confident that we are going to see these temperatures drop down even a little bit more this morning. This might just be where we hang out, which is going to be good for being out on the roads today. But the further north that you go, you can see your fair share of areas at the surface are starting to dip into the upper 20s, maybe even around 30 degrees up in Monticello. Once again, I'm going to continue to say it. If you do live in Monticello and you are watching, please send us some videos of what's going on, because we've continued to see that heavy snow band and those temperatures be the lowest of anywhere here in central Georgia up in Jasper County. So we would love to have a look at what's actually going on. But it looks like Ansley Parker is popping up a picture I haven't seen yet. This looks to be over in Monroe County. What are we looking at over there, Ansley?
Some exciting stuff. We've got flurries in Monroe County now, and if you were watching the cut-in earlier, you may have seen a couple flurries coming down on Naomi Washington. She's actually in Monroe County. I just sent her a text message and said, hey, if you can see any flurries, send me a photo. So we may get another picture of what's going on over there soon, but really a beautiful sight in Monroe County, and you can see in this specific person's backyard, and let me actually go back to this post for some credit. Allie Hawthorne in Monroe County. She sent this photo into our weather network. You can see it kind of accumulating in her backyard as well. Very, very cool. I mean, exciting, especially if you're just home today. It's exciting to see a couple more flurries than just some of that wintry mix, where we're talking about frozen rain, where we're talking about sleet. And you know, something else that's really kind of interesting that's going on in our weather network here is I'm also seeing people post photos of the sunrise. I'm kind of waiting to hear back on where people are seeing the sunrise this morning, because it is kind of a tale of two stories this morning across central Georgia. We're seeing, if we kind of flip it over to our live satellite and radar, we're seeing a lot of some wintry precip across our northern counties. When we start talking about our southern counties, they're waking up to a totally different story this morning. Further towards the south in our southern half of central Georgia, we're really not even seeing any precip at all. So it's definitely kind of the tale of two pictures this morning. And when I'm taking a look at sunset photos in our weather network, that really just paints that picture extra for me. So lots of widespread wintry mix across our northern counties, not so much in our southern half. Again, as we kind of progress throughout the rest of today, however, everybody's going to get their fair share of precip, whether that be somewhat frozen, somewhat wintry mix, or just regular rain. So as we kind of progress throughout the rest of the afternoon today, we're talking about a lot more regular rain across our southern half here in central Georgia. But again, just paying attention to the weather network. Again, I'm keeping a really close eye on this. So if you do see some reports of frozen precip across your area, or you have some pictures that you want to send in to us, make sure to submit them there, because I am keeping a close eye on what you guys are saying. Also keeping a close eye on if you note problem areas that maybe the National Weather Service hasn't quite noted yet. They're keeping a really, really close track on what's going on in North Georgia at the moment. Again, the heaviest band of snow right now is where you're seeing that dark red color on our satellite and radar. This is really kind of giving us a picture of where things are coming down the heaviest right now. So that is the biggest focus, likely for emergency management, likely for GDOT, and for the National Weather Service at the moment. Further here, where we're just seeing a couple of those mixed showers, maybe not quite as much, but I am also, like Alex, interested to see what's going on in Jasper and Putnam counties. You can see that area of darker red just to the northern half of both of those counties. Maybe they're seeing a couple flurries, or maybe an area of heavier wintry precip up in that region. Definitely would love to get some photos from what's going on up there. I feel like Alex and I are two kids on Christmas morning. We saw some of the sleet earlier at the news station, and it was super exciting for us. So we are excited to see all of your photos. And Alex, what they're saying in the National Weather Service about the airport right now, still looking really crazy. So maybe we could pull up an airport sky cam here in the next couple of minutes. But yeah, really, really just an exciting event for North Georgia, and maybe not quite as much here in central Georgia, but definitely still a little bit crazy. There is a look at the Atlanta airport. So we're seeing still some conversation about this in the National Weather Service chat, just about how much is coming down and how quickly it's coming down here. You can still seeing some steady snow showers in this area. Again, earlier they did mention that they maybe issued a ground stop of flights at the airport. It does look like nobody's coming in or out at the moment. It looks like it'd be hard for them to also. So it does look like that might be reigning true here at the moment. When I'm looking in the chat, I'm seeing reports of 2 to 3 inches of snow across North Georgia, again, just to the north of central Georgia here near the airport. So yeah, a lot of snow coming down in those areas. When we're talking about central Georgia, definitely not seeing quite as much as they're seeing there at the moment. So that's kind of big picture what we have going on across the area. Again, keep sending your photos and videos. First of all, I'm loving seeing them, but second of all, giving us great content of what's going on outside, especially because we are here at the studio kind of playing it by ear and going off of our radar that's not doing the best job at the moment. So I'll take it back over to Alex. Maybe he has something else for us here. What you got, Alex?
Well, yeah, just going on to say that winter weather, we've been reiterating it and reiterating it. It is very hard to forecast because the slightest changes can make all the world of difference. But also just going with kind of one arm tied behind your back with the radar outage this morning, it has been fairly difficult, but we've been continuing to kind of just tackle it head on and do what we can in terms of getting those current actual real-time videos like what we're seeing right here at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, continuing to see that steady snowfall. And what I was just doing over here, I was looking at our soundings. So those are going to be your ray wind sounds, those weather balloons that we're sending up into the atmosphere, getting a picture of how warm the atmosphere is at each different level. Obviously, the higher that you go up, the colder that it gets. But once we get closer and closer to the surface, that's where we're starting to look at temperatures that are really flirting with that freezing temperature. And it looks to be a very saturated atmosphere, which is good for precipitation, but temperatures are looking like they're hovering right there on the freezing temperature line right here over Macon. So we are continuing to probably going to see that get a little bit more saturated, but getting that warm nose, once you start to get a layer of that atmosphere that is above freezing temperature, that's going to contribute to the melting, and basically any precipitation that does fall, it's going to be of the liquid form rather than that wintry mix that we are continuing to see. So as we continue to go about the morning hours right now, the chances of seeing any of that winter precipitation are getting lower and lower as we go into warmer parts of the day, and especially once we get into that window around 9 to 10, maybe even 11 a.m. where we're really looking at that warm layer of the atmosphere to start to develop a little further aloft. That is unfortunately what we're going to be dealing with for the rest of the day, mainly just a cold rain here in central Georgia. Again, the further north that you live, that's where the road conditions are going to continue to deteriorate. It looks all fun up near the Atlanta area right now at the airport, even up here around the Hampton area. I have a sky cam around there. It's looking all fun, especially getting those flurries. But once you get temperatures at the surface, they get above freezing temperature, that's going to allow for the icing of those kind of flurries that are situated at the ground. And then eventually they will warm up and that ice will begin to melt, but the road conditions are going to get fairly slick up in those areas further to the north, especially that do try to hover around that freezing temperature mark, and you start to get a little bit of melting and then maybe it'll refreeze over. So it's going to be a pretty big mess up there, I do believe, as we go throughout the next couple of hours into the afternoon and evening up near the metro Atlanta area. So we're going to continue to stay posted, especially here with all of this weather creeping into our northern corridor here in central Georgia. So once again, most areas hovering above freezing temperature, not really seeing much of the precipitation as of right now. And this is exactly what we were saying, that brief mixture of a kind of snow and a rain for some areas, but then going to lead the way into mostly a cold rain event here in central Georgia. Still don't see that wintry mix every day, so that's why we want to keep you informed with all the latest information. Getting ready for our 8:25 cut-in now, so we're going to hop off the stream, probably hop back on for another 30 minutes, and then at 9 a.m. we're going to reevaluate if we're going to really need to continue to be out here on the stream. But once again, if you are traveling on the roads this morning, no matter where you are, it's best to be cautious because like Naomi was saying up in Monroe County, it's really hard to figure out where those frozen areas of that standing water is. So you could run into an area of ice, especially the further north that you do travel. So heading to be on air on 13 WMAZ in about a minute here. So we will be back on the stream shortly after around 8:30. Alrighty, well, thank you for tuning back in here at just past 8:30 this morning in Central Georgia. Another sky cam for you, and unfortunately not in Central Georgia, but this is Atlanta Motor Speedway just to our northwest. So you can get a good idea of all the snow that has been continuing to fall, probably transforming a little bit into that wintry mix. There is the speedway right here just past the little fence that you can see, and then obviously the leaderboard pole right there, and then all of the midfield of the track is definitely looking like it is covered in snow as well. So as our current satellite and radar picture does continue to stand, it is looking more and more like that we are seeing this heavy precipitation that is going to be further up to the north, and that is looking like we're getting that steadier winter mix in nature. But also we do have our working radar now up in Peachtree City, so you can definitely see it flash with nothing on there, and then it goes back to actually showing us what's going on. So I'll press now right here so you can get a good depiction of what's going on. This is definitely some pretty heavy precipitation right here. This is just to the north of us here in Central Georgia. We're going to continue to keep an eye out to see if any of this does try to trek a little bit further to the south. But as it stands, this transforms more into a wintry mix once you get into this area. So taking it on over from Peachtree City, just to the north of Griffin, Jackson, up into Monticello, over into Eatonton, around the Lake Oconee area, probably still seeing our fair share of snow showers, and then over into Sparta, but just north of Sparta, still looking at some pretty substantial, like heavy winter precipitation. So that's where it continues to stand as of right now. All of the snowfall has been further up to our north, but is continuing to make road conditions very, very deteriorating road conditions, rather, I should say, especially up I-75. We've taken a look at some traffic cams. We've seen our fair share of snow on the side of I-75, and also getting some traffic reports of some crashes. Obviously, just going to emphasize why we continue to tell you to exercise caution on the roads, especially if you are making your way northward out of Central Georgia. So road conditions are drastically deteriorating, and any of that snowfall that has fallen, it's going to start to turn into more of a freezing rain that's going to fall over it, and it's going to create icy conditions all to the north of us. So while we may be missing out on the snow across much of Central Georgia, it is definitely going to be a mess further to our north as we go throughout today around the Atlanta area, probably stretching over into Athens and everywhere in between, all around this I-20 corridor. That's been the sweet spot and really the telltale of where we're going to see that winter weather. But obviously some of our counties have been included in those winter storm watches, warnings, even the advisories, and I'll go ahead and flash it over to that. And it's still a pretty accurate depiction of what's going to happen, I do believe, but still right now we are continuing to see all of these areas that did get added on, like Hancock, Washington County, all the way south of Jasper and Putnam County. These areas in that winter weather advisory means winter weather conditions are expected. Haven't seen that really come to fruition as of right now, but definitely Monroe County, the further that you're going up I-75 around Johnstonville Road, around High Falls Road, as you start to exit the Monroe County line into that little edge of Lamar County, then up into Butts County just to the west of Jackson, those road conditions are definitely deteriorating, seeing our fair share of crashes reported and such, along with Jasper and Putnam seeing some of more of that heavier precipitation earlier this morning. So while it's not all of Central Georgia, we definitely want to continue to make sure that people here in Central Georgia are informed, especially with now the morning commute time really passing, but that has been over the last hour or so. Many folks from here travel up to Atlanta, maybe up to Athens, further to the north in order to go to work, and we want to keep you informed about the roadways and what the latest update is with all of those. And speaking of the latest update, let's send it over to meteorologist Ansley Parker. It's been a tag team effort this morning continuing to cover all this winter weather potential. Right now it hasn't come to fruition in most of Central Georgia, which is good news for the ice implications, but what do you have for the latest?
Yeah, that's right, Alex. I think most of our headlines at the moment are really related to what's going on in North Georgia, specifically the fact that there's so much accumulation going on now. The latest is that there's a ground stop at Hartsfield Jackson, and we do have a sky cam for that. You can, we probably can pop it up here. Give me 1 second to do that. But the snow is really coming down up in North Georgia. It is definitely a much different sight than what we're seeing across Central Georgia right now, and I am going to show you what Hartsfield-Jackson looks like at the moment, it actually is a little bit hard to see because of just how much snow is coming down there at the moment and just what a crazy picture things are looking like across North Georgia there. There is a look at the airport right now. A lot of accumulation on the ground, not only of snow, but also of ice. It's important to note that we are kind of seeing a little bit of a transition from that pure snow to a little bit of that wintry mix there. So definitely seeing some ice across the area. And when you saw our satellite and radar picture there, you can see just how much of a high reflectivity value we're getting, which really means there's a lot of heavy precipitation coming down in that area, especially in Newton County. Look at that dark purple there, those dark red values, just showing how heavy the rainfall or the snowfall is there. And sorry, that is our Peachtree City radar that keeps cutting out there. So I'll keep it a little bit closer to us here so you can get just a picture of how heavy things are coming down just to the north of us. Again, I'd be interested to see what's going on in North Jasper and North Putnam counties. They're still seeing some of those dark red reflectivity values as well, which means they could also be getting likely some heavy snowfall also in those areas. And again, when you saw that winter weather alert, the winter weather warning in that Alex just showed you there, they were the two counties that were outlined in the warning as opposed to the advisory. So under the advisory, we've seen a lot more mixed precip. We've seen some of that wintry mix. That's been the case throughout the morning here, but further in Jasper and Putnam, probably seeing likely some more heavy snowfall in those areas. So again, important to note that right now it does look like we're transitioning a little bit from some of those light flurries to a little bit more of the wintry mix, which means some of our counties like Monroe, like Jones, like Baldwin, that we're seeing some of the flurries earlier, now starting to see more of that sleet, freezing rain. So it's a little bit different. That's the report that I'm getting there from our reporter out in the field, Naomi Washington. She's in Monroe County. She texted me earlier and told me that the flurries that she was talking about a minute ago have really turned into sleet and rain, and it's actually starting to wash away a little bit of the accumulation of the flurries on the ground. So that's what she's telling me from out in the field right now. If we take a look at what's going on in the Weather Network, what's going on in the National Weather Service chat, you guys are still sending photos of flurries in a lot of areas. This picture had me and Alex Fry laughing earlier. Some people just kind of joking. It's not really that much of an accumulation going on outside, but you know, exciting to see snow nonetheless for especially our northern counties towards Putnam and Baldwin County, seeing a couple flurries in that area. But I do want to note what a different story this is for our southern half of central Georgia. These are the photos that I'm getting from our southern half in central Georgia. We're seeing beautiful sunrises to start the day. That's in Telfair County. I'm also seeing some sunrises submitted from Wheeler County. So beautiful sunny skies this morning, a couple clouds, but definitely not seeing any snowfall, not even seeing any wintry precip. So again, it's just kind of important to note our weather impact alert was for our northern half here, and it continues to stay that way. There really hasn't even been any rain in our southern half really this morning. As we kind of push into the afternoon, that's when things are going to change a little bit. But yeah, kind of the tale of two stories here this morning, Alex. A little bit different across the board, even just as you start talking about North Georgia to central Georgia to southern central Georgia, we're kind of sitting in a spread of different things. So I'm going to toss it back over to you. You let me know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly right, Ansley. I mean, just seeing such a sharp gradient of what areas are really seeing just heavy winter storm implications, especially for the state of Georgia. And the further south that we go, you're just waking up to cold temperatures. And obviously that is the best case scenario. You will get your rain later on this afternoon. But also in our northern half, areas are hovering around that freezing temperature at the surface. So that's what we're going to continue to monitor, because obviously temperatures at the surface that are freezing temperature, that's going to allow for the freezing and the icing of any precipitation that has fallen in those areas. So we could possibly see that sag down a little bit further down to the south, maybe here in the Macon area, maybe around Gordon. Those temperatures are hovering above freezing temperature, not to say that it can't still fall as more of a wintry mix or maybe even a little bit of a flurry shower. So right now the rain still remains mainly to our north, and let's take a look at those current temperatures further up to the north. Still hovering around 30 degrees around the Atlanta area, north of Atlanta, south of Atlanta, west of Atlanta. Carrollton has been in the upper 20s for most of this morning. But also just looking at the satellite and radar picture, I mean, it's actually pretty substantial what we're dealing with in terms of the rate of some of this precipitation. Take a look up here to our north, just one county north of us here in central Georgia. This is going to be around the Covington area in Newton County. Starting to see flashes of that pink. That's typically what you see in those severe thunderstorm warnings, maybe around a hail signature. That is just showing showing you how heavy that snow band is really further to our north, and that is continuing. Even some pockets of the dark red just to the north of Hancock County, maybe even in the northern edge of Hancock County. So once again, this is not most of central Georgia, but the further north that you live, this is having pretty big implications for the forecast, making for very messy conditions on the roads, and also will continue to allow for the standing of possibly some ice accumulation further up to the north. That's what we've continued to be saying over the last couple of days. Those areas further to the north are going to have the greater chance of seeing those winter weather impacts. Everyone else here in central Georgia has a chance of seeing that brief mixture during the morning hours when we are coldest, and then that's going to transition into a cold rain as we get warmer layers a little bit higher up in the atmosphere. So we're going to take it over to, where is the headlines graphic? Actually, no, I'm going to throw it over to the Skycam. I believe I had one Skycam that I was going to show you guys. Especially once we get up there to where that heavy precipitation band is. It doesn't look like we have any sky cams in that area, which is pretty unfortunate. But we will take it up somewhere else. That's kind of an area we haven't talked about too much, but this is still in that outline that we were looking at of the possible winter precipitation, maybe the ice accumulation. And I know Ainsley Parker will be thrilled to see this. Take a look at the University of Georgia campus right now. Man, what it would be to be about 2 years younger and back in college and seeing this. This would be pretty awesome right here. But giving you an idea of how steady that snowfall is further to the north of us. And very well, we could see that try to sag a little bit to the south right now. And we are seeing areas in our northern extent dealing with winter precipitation acclimations like up in Athens right now. So the University of Georgia did cancel school today. I think that was pretty well warranted. It looks like a few folks are still out on the roads right now. If you are traveling up to the north, please, I will continue to say it until the message does get across, because I want you to be very cautious on the roads. The roads are going to get very slick. All of the snowfall is eventually going to start to melt a little bit, turn into more of an ice, and it's going to be a pretty nasty situation further up to the north, while it does look pretty good right now. So obviously continue to stay updated on those road conditions the further north, especially if you have travel plans out of central Georgia later on today. So let's take it over to Ainsley Parker. I've been showing you that satellite and radar picture just where those heavy bands of the winter precipitation are. Ainsley has a good depiction of what the National Weather Service did send us just recently ago.
Yeah, it can be kind of hard with snow events, right? Because we're looking at our reflectivity and it's using the same colors that you're used to seeing when we have regular rain, when we have severe weather coming in. So I think that the National Weather Service kind of gives us a better picture with a little bit different coloring that you can see here on your screen. And they just sent this to the National Weather Service chat, so that's why it's a little bit messy. The colors are kind of hard to see, so I'll break it down for you here. What you're seeing in that yellow circle, if you can kind of pick that out, just south of I-20, that red area is what they're calling expanding freezing rain. So where we're seeing that really high reflectivity value on our radar, that's showing that there's some freezing rain moving into that area, kind of expanding into what looks like Jasper and Putnam counties in terms of our viewing area, and will continue kind of moving out towards the east. If we take a look just north of that, where you're seeing more of those pink values that's circled in the green circle there, that is the heavy snow band that's dumping so much rain on Hartsfield-Jackson right now, or not rain, excuse me, snowfall on Hartsfield-Jackson, and just dumping really, really heavy snowfall along that area. When we take a look at reports from the National Weather Service chat, we're talking dumping multiple inches of snowfall in that region. That is making a northeasterly direction. So my family, if you're watching, that's heading towards you. But more snowfall heading further towards the north. We're talking more about freezing rain and again mixed precip further towards the south of I-20. So that's where you're again seeing that red value. That's the freezing rain. And what we're seeing here in central Georgia still, again, likely seeing some of that mixed precip. What we're hearing from out in the field is we're seeing a couple flurries transition now into more sleet, freezing rain, just wintry mix in general. So again, curious to kind of know what's going on in Jasper and Putnam counties from the field. If you have photos or anything like that to send to us, you can drop them in our weather network or let them know, or let our newsroom know about them. Again, just kind of curious to see what the conditions are there, but that's really looking like we're seeing the main impacts in central Georgia. Further towards the south, things are not looking quite as expansive. It still mainly remains an event that's further up towards our north. So that's kind of just a better picture, maybe if it's a little confusing to see just on our satellite and radar, of what specifically is going on with snowfall, and then again mixed wintry precip further towards the south. So we're going to hop onto the cut-in here in just a few minutes, but I'm going to check in with Alex one more time before we do that. What's up, Alex?
All right, just reading some of the comments here on the live stream about some areas that are seeing potential impacts, seeing reports of that sleet in Milledgeville, starting to see stuff that is further down to the south. Let me look at some snow in Barnesville and Lamar County, snow in Forsyth. Eatonton, Georgia, seeing a report that there is lots of snow. So certain portions of those northernmost counties are definitely dealing with more winter implications than other areas further down to the south, obviously. Trying to continue to keep you guys informed that are seeing that winter precipitation as we go throughout this morning. And then once again, we'll take one last look at the satellite and radar picture. We'll hop off stream. Obviously, if you have any questions for Ansley Parker and I think we're going to take a brief break from the stream, as it looks like most of this heavy rain band is still mainly to the north of us, starting to clip even Jasper County up in northern Putnam County. So those areas I was just referring to that are seeing reports of that winter weather, still continuing to see that wintry mix, more so some heavy snow showers, especially once you get into this darker red area just to the north of us here. But obviously, maybe some people tuning in that do live in these counties up here just out of our viewing area. We want to make sure that you guys are properly informed as well, and continuing to actually see maybe some of that light wintry mix move in from the west, maybe making more of its presence known in Taylor County, down into Crawford County, possibly eventually southern Monroe County over into Macon-Bibb County eventually, possibly. So we're continuing to monitor this as we go throughout this morning. Once again, we're going to hop off the stream for a little bit, kind of see where we are standing with our current winter weather implications. Obviously, got to relay some information to everyone here at the news station, and we will continue to keep you updated all throughout this morning. Ben Jones will be in later on this evening to keep you updated with the potential for any freezing over of any precipitation that we do see later on this afternoon for all of the rest of central Georgia. But right now we're about to head to our 8:55 cut-in, so we're going to hop on air on 13 WMAZ.
Good morning, it's 8:55. I'm Caitlin Heck.
And I'm Frederick Price. Let's take a look at your top stories this morning. As we continue to watch the winter weather, we're checking in again with Naomi Washington. She's been live with us all morning long. She's in Monroe County this morning. How's it looking out there, Naomi?
Yeah, Frederick, Caitlin, I'm still out here. There's still a wintry mix coming down here in Monroe County. About a half hour ago when I checked in with you guys, there were some soft flurries coming down out of the sky. If you take a look here on the ground, those flurries have kind of collected on the ground, on top of each other. But now that we're back to this sleet rain mixture, I'm kind of thinking it might wash away, and it kind of also feels like it's kind of icing up there. So I checked in again also with Captain Christina Bramlett, and she says it's still a quiet morning here in terms of emergency response calls that they're getting, and it's really just a wait and see. They feel like the real concern could come later in the day after, everything that's going to come down has come down. They feel like that could potentially come in later tonight. In Monroe County, Naomi Washington, 13 WMAZ News. Back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Naomi. Continuing to monitor the winter weather potential that we're seeing all across some areas of north central Georgia this morning. That was a live look at downtown Macon. Still haven't seen too much activity here in Bibb County, but continuing to keep an eye on areas farther to the north, specifically Jasper and Putnam now. We're starting to see a heavy band of snow just to the north of them, probably clipping the northern edges of those counties, and not just subjected to those two areas. Now seeing maybe some more wintry mix. It's pretty light in nature, but moving in in from the west. And taking a look at our current temperatures, what we actually have been seeing over recently, the last hour or so, areas further to the north, obviously from about just north of Macon and up towards maybe Jasper County, Putnam, over to the west a little bit. Temperatures are hovering around freezing temperature at that 32-degree mark, even slightly below it up in Eatonton. So that's going to lead for more of a chance of seeing that winter weather in those areas, along with the accumulation of that frozen precipitation at the ground. So that's going to continue to be a concern throughout today, especially into the evening, possibly into tomorrow morning, and we're going to continue to keep you updated on that. But right now, most of central Georgia not seeing any precipitation whatsoever. Temperatures are hovering a little bit too warm to see any of that winter precipitation, but we're going to take it over to Ansley Parker, who has the latest as of right now.
All right, thank you so much, Alex. Yeah, in North Georgia, a much different story than what we're seeing here in central Georgia. There's been a ground stop at Hartsfield-Jackson. Lots of heavy snowfall kind of rolling across much of North Georgia at this time. Here in central Georgia, in our northern counties, again, like you just heard Naomi say, where we were seeing some flurries earlier, now we're starting to transition into more of that wintry mix. We're talking seeing more sleet and seeing a little bit more in terms of freezing rain, which means we're keeping our eye on the ice potential here as we kind of head throughout the rest of the mid-morning. Further towards our south, in our southern half of central Georgia, it's a totally different story. I'm seeing your reports in the Weather Network, waking up to a beautiful sunrise with mostly clear skies except for a couple of clouds out there, and the rain for the southern half of central Georgia really won't come in until later this afternoon. So that's kind of the story for most of our area right now. I'll take it back to you, Frederick and Caitlin.
Alex, Ansley, Fariha, Naomi, the entire team, thank you so much for keeping us informed this morning. As always, you can connect with us on 13 WNAZ+.
And we'll see you back here at noon for midday. We hope you have a great morning.